The mansion was quiet. Too quiet. From the outside, it looked like a palace from a dream. Tall white pillars rose into the sky, glowing under the twin suns. The walls shimmered with silver light, and the gardens stretched for miles, filled with flowers that only grew on alien soil. Servants moved like shadows, careful not to make a sound. Inside, the halls were wide and filled with priceless art from across the galaxy. Rare crystals glowed on the ceiling. Golden statues of forgotten heroes stood along the walls. Everything screamed of wealth and power. But still, there was silence. The silence did not come from peace. It came from sadness. In the center of the house, behind a set of heavy doors, sat a young alien girl. Her eyes were bright, her smile was gentle, but her body refused to move. From her waist down, she was paralyzed. She sat in a floating chair day after day, staring out through the giant glass window at the endless stars. Her name was Lyra. Lyra used to run. She used to dance. She used to sing with her friends in the crystal gardens. But one day, everything ended. No medicine, no healer, no alien science could restore what she had lost. Doctors came and went. Machines hummed and failed. Her mother had tried everything. Her mother was no ordinary woman. She was rich, powerful, respected, even feared. Across the galaxy, people whispered her name, Lady Seraphine, a millionaire by birth, a leader by strength. To the galaxy, she looked untouchable. But here, in this house, she was just a mother with a broken heart. She would sit beside Lyra every night, holding her hand, whispering promises. I will find a way. I swear you will walk again. But years passed and nothing changed. That night the silence was heavier than ever. The servants avoided the main hall. The stars outside glowed cold and far away. Inside the dining room, Lady Seraphine sat alone, at a long silver table. 100 dishes were placed in front of her, but she barely touched them. Food had no taste when her daughter's laughter was gone. Then, a sound. Not from the house, but from her communicator. A message. Short. Strange. From someone she did not know. The message said only this. A human can help her. Her heart froze. Humans. In her world, humans were seen as weak, fragile, simple. Aliens thought of them as nothing compared to the great species of the stars. Humans did not have powerful technology. They did not have strong armies. They did not have ancient wisdom. What could a human possibly do that all her science and wealth could not? And yet, something about the message burned in her mind. She read it again and again. Finally, she stood and walked to her daughter's room. Lyra looked up when the door opened. Her face was pale, but her eyes still carried light. Mother? She whispered softly. Are you okay? Lady Seraphine forced a smile. I have received news. Lyra tilted her head. What kind of news? The mother hesitated. How could she tell her daughter that she was thinking of trusting a stranger? Not just a stranger, a human. Last, she only said, perhaps a new healer will come. Lyra's smile grew. For her, hope was enough. Even the smallest chance made her eyes shine brighter. Seraphine could not sleep that night. She walked through the halls of her mansion, again and again. The silence followed her everywhere. Every golden statue, every glowing crystal, every treasure in her house, all of it felt empty. None of it mattered when her daughter could not walk. Finally, she whispered to herself, if there is even one chance, I will take it, even if it comes from a human. And so the message was answered. The next day, the servants moved quickly to prepare. The mansion was polished, the gates opened, the air filled with tension. Lady Seraphine stood tall at the entrance, her hands clasped. Behind her back, her eyes sharp and cold. The alien nobles who lived nearby had already heard rumors. They whispered among themselves, why would she call a human? Does she not know it is useless? Humans are weak. But Seraphine ignored them all. She waited. And then, The human arrived. He did not come in a shining ship or with a group of guards. He walked alone. His clothes were simple, his face calm, his eyes sharp. Lady Seraphine studied him carefully, her heart filled with doubt. This was the one. This was the creature who claimed he could do what no alien doctor, no alien scientist, no alien healer had ever done. The silence in the mansion grew heavier. The servants watched from the shadows. The nobles whispered louder. Lyra waited in her room, her heart pounding with hope and fear. And Lady Seraphine asked herself one question, over and over. Have I just made the biggest mistake of my life? The human's arrival. The morning came with a heavy sky. 2 suns burned above the horizon, but the air felt cold. Everyone in the mansion was restless. Servants whispered to each other, their voices low and nervous. Even the walls seemed to hold their breath. The gates of the mansion were open, but no royal ship stood outside. No golden carriage, no army of guards. Instead, one figure walked slowly along the shining path. A human. His steps were calm, almost too calm for someone entering the most powerful house on the planet. His clothes were simple, plain black boots, a coat made of worn fabric. Nothing expensive, nothing alien. On this world of glowing silks and floating jewelry, he looked out of place. His eyes, however, were sharp. They studied everything. The garden, the servants, even the guards who stood frozen in confusion. Whispers rose immediately. Is that really a human? He looks so ordinary. What can he do here? From her high balcony, Lady Seraphine watched in silence. She had expected some kind of healer, perhaps with tools, machines, or at least the look of a scientist. But this man carried nothing. No weapons, no devices. Only a small case in his hand, as if it contained secrets the galaxy had forgotten. The guards at the gate blocked his path. You cannot pass without permission. The man looked at them, not with fear, not with anger, but with patience. He said only one sentence. I was invited. The word struck the guards like a command. They looked at each other, uncertain, then stepped aside. Somehow, that calm voice carried more weight than any order. Lady Seraphine narrowed her eyes. Something about this human was different. He walked into the mansion with steady steps, not hurried, not afraid. The servants moved back as if a storm had entered. His presence was quiet, but it filled the hall like thunder waiting to strike. At last, the great doors of the main hall opened. Lady Seraphine stood tall at the far end, her silver gown flowing like water. Her eyes were sharp as blades. She studied him, searching for weakness. The human bowed slightly, not with fear, but with respect. Lady Seraphine. Her voice was cold. You are the one who claims you can help my daughter? I claim nothing, the man replied. I only do what I can. His answer unsettled her. He was not trying to sell hope. He was not begging for trust. He spoke like someone who had already seen too much of life and death. Your kind, she said slowly, is not known for healing, not known for power. Why should I believe you? The man met her gaze without flinching. Because your people tried everything and nothing worked. When you have nothing left, even a human is something. The hall went silent. The nobles who had gathered in secret gasped at his boldness. No one had ever spoken to Lady Seraphine that way, but instead of anger, something stirred inside her. The truth in his words hit her harder than any insult. She turned away. Very well. You may see her, but if you fail... She let the words hang in the air, sharp and heavy. The man nodded once. I do not fail. The servants led him through long corridors. The walls glowed with soft crystal light. Every step echoed through the silence. He reached the heavy doors of Lyra's room. Inside, the girl sat in her floating chair, her eyes wide with curiosity. When the human entered, she gasped softly. She had never seen one so close. He stopped in front of her, kneeling slightly so their eyes were level. For a long moment he said nothing. He simply studied her face, her hands, her legs that did not move. Lyra broke the silence first. "Are you the healer?" A small smile touched his lips. "Some call me that, but I'm not here to heal you. I am here to remind your body what it forgot." She blinked, confused. "Forgot?" He nodded. "Your legs are not dead, they are asleep, we will wake them." Her heart raced. No alien doctor had ever spoken like this. They spoke of nerves, of machines, of failures. But this human spoke of hope, like it was alive inside her. The mother stood behind them, watching every word, every gesture. Her chest tightened. Could this truly be possible? Or was it another cruel dream? The human placed the small case on the floor and opened it. Inside were no strange alien tools, no glowing crystals, only simple items. A band of cloth, a stick carved from wood, a small book filled with notes. The nobles who peeked through the door nearly laughed. "This is the great secret? Cloth and wood? Pathetic." But when the man placed his hand gently on Lyra's leg, the room fell silent again. He closed his eyes as if listening not to her words but to something deeper, her pulse, her breath, her hidden strength. At last he opened his eyes and said softly, "Your body remembers more than you think." Lyra's eyes filled with tears. She didn't understand why, but the words sank into her heart like light breaking through darkness. Lady Seraphine stood frozen. For the first time in years, she felt something rise inside her chest, something she had almost forgotten existed. Hope. And as the human prepared for the first attempt, the silence of the mansion shifted. It was no longer the silence of sadness. It was the silence before a storm. The first attempt. The room was heavy with silence. Lady Seraphine stood with her arms crossed, her eyes sharp, while Lyra sat nervously in her floating chair. The human opened his small case again and took out the simplest things: a strip of cloth, the wooden stick, and the small book. No glowing machines, no alien scanners, nothing that looked powerful. The servants at the door whispered to one another, "Is this a joke? He came all this way for toys?" But the human ignored them. His eyes were calm, steady, almost too steady. He moved closer to Lyra, kneeling in front of her paralyzed legs. "Do not be afraid," he said softly. "This is not pain. This is memory." Lyra looked down at him, her hands trembling slightly. "But my legs, they cannot move. No one can fix them." He smiled faintly. "That is what they told you, but I do not listen to what is said. I listen to what is inside." He wrapped the cloth gently around her leg above the knee. Not tight, just enough to give support. Then, with slow movements, he lifted her leg with both hands. It was heavy. Dead weight. Her leg fell limp as soon as he let go. The nobles hiding behind the door laughed quietly. Pathetic. Even humans cannot fight death. Lady Seraphine's jaw tightened. She wanted to shout at him, to order him out, but something in his calm movement stopped her. He wasn't rushing. He wasn't panicking. He was listening. "Your body is not broken," he said again, as if speaking to Lyra's bones themselves. "It only forgot how to speak to you. We will teach it again." He placed the wooden stick in Lyra's hand. "Hold this. Feel the weight. Do not think of your legs. Think of this stick. Imagine the strength moving from your hand, to your arm, down, down, to your legs." Lyra stared at the stick, her eyes wide. She had tried so many therapies, so many machines, so many strange alien treatments. Nothing had worked. But still, she closed her eyes and imagined what he said. Minutes passed. Nothing moved. The servants sighed. The nobles smirked. One of them whispered, "The human is wasting time. He will shame her even more." Then, something small. A twitch. Lady Seraphine froze. Her eyes darted to Lyra's foot. It had moved. Just the tiniest flicker, but it moved. Lyra gasped, her eyes filling with tears. "Mother." "I felt it." The room exploded in whispers. The noble's smirks vanished. The servants leaned forward, unable to believe. The human did not smile, did not celebrate. He only nodded. Good, again. He guided her again, slow and patient. Her hand squeezed the stick. Her breath quickened. Her lips whispered, "Move! Move!" Another twitch. Stronger this time. Lady Seraphine's hand covered her mouth. She had not seen her daughter's legs move in years. Her heart pounded, so loud she thought the whole mansion could hear it. But then, the strength left. Lyra's leg went limp again. She collapsed back in her chair, breathing hard, sweat on her forehead. The nobles seized their chance. "It is nothing but luck," one hissed. "A dead muscle twitches, that is all." But the human turned his head sharply, his eyes like fire. "Luck? No. This is the first step. Do not mock what you do not understand." His voice cut through the room like a blade. The nobles fell silent. Lyra looked at him, exhausted but glowing with hope. It moved. I felt it. He placed his hand gently on her shoulder. "This is only the beginning. Your body remembers, but it will resist. You must fight. Every day, every breath, will you fight?" Her small voice trembled, but it was firm. Yes. Lady Seraphine felt her chest tighten. She had watched the greatest doctors of the galaxy fail. She had spent fortunes on machines that promised miracles. None of them had done what this one human had done in only minutes: make her daughter believe again. But she also felt fear. Hope was dangerous. Hope could be cruel. The human stood and looked directly at her. Tomorrow will be harder. Each day will break her body and her spirit. If you wish to stop, stop now. But if we continue, she will suffer before she rises. Thikar. Words cut deep. A mother's heart wanted to protect, but another part of her, burning, desperate, wanted her child to walk again no matter the cost. She looked at her daughter. Lyra's eyes were shining, brighter than she had seen in years. "I will fight," Lyra said again, louder this time. The human nodded once. "Then tomorrow the real battle begins." He packed away his simple tools. The room felt alive now, no longer filled with dead silence. The air itself seemed to hum with energy, with possibility. But Lady Seraphine's mind was torn. Could this human truly succeed? Or would he break her daughter's heart once more? As the door closed behind him, she whispered to herself, her hands trembling, "Please, let this not be another cruel dream." The mansion that had once been silent now held something it had not carried in years. Not fear, not sadness, hope. Fragile, trembling, but alive. Doubt and hope. The night after the first attempt was long. The mansion was quiet again. But this time the silence was different. It wasn't heavy with sorrow. It was sharp, restless, like the moment before a storm. Lady Seraphine walked the long silver corridors of her home. Her gown whispered against the marble floors. Servants bowed as she passed, but she hardly noticed them. Her thoughts were louder than any voice. She had seen her daughter's leg twitch. Just once, just a small flicker. But it had been real. For years nothing had moved. Nothing had changed. Then a human had arrived, and in a single hour, Lyra's body had remembered something it had forgotten. Seraphine stopped at a window and looked out at the twin suns sinking below the horizon. The sky turned purple, the stars beginning to pierce through. She had bought entire fleets of healers. She had summoned doctors from the farthest worlds. They had failed, every one of them. So why had a human succeeded, even a little? Her fists tightened at her sides. Part of her wanted to believe. Part of her wanted to fall on her knees and thank the stars. But another part whispered, "Be careful. Hope can kill as surely as despair." In Lyra's room, the girl could not sleep. Her small hands clutched the blanket as she stared at the ceiling. For the first time in years, she felt something in her legs. A twitch, a spark, a sign that maybe, just maybe, she was not lost forever. She whispered into the dark, I will walk again. I will. But her voice trembled, for she knew the human had warned them tomorrow would be harder. The next morning, the mansion stirred with rumors. The nobles had not slept either. They gathered in the hall, their faces sharp with scorn. It was only a spasm. He tricks her with simple tricks. He is dangerous. Some even whispered darker words. Perhaps the human uses forbidden methods. Perhaps he curses her with false hope. Lady Seraphine heard them all, but she said nothing. Her eyes hid her storm. When the human returned, he entered as calmly as the day before. His boots tapped lightly on the polished floor. He bowed to no one, begged no one. He walked straight toward Lyra's chamber as if the house itself had opened for him. The nobles bristled. "This is an insult," one shouted. "Does he not know whose house this is?" But the human did not look at them. His eyes were fixed, only on the door ahead and beyond it, the girl waiting for him. Inside the room, Lyra greeted him with wide eyes. She looked tired, but her smile was brighter than before. "You came back," she said softly. "I said I would," he answered. Simply, Lady Seraphine stood at the side, her arms crossed, her face unreadable. "You warned us yesterday. Today will be worse." "Why?" The human set his small case on the floor. He opened it, revealing the same simple tools. Because yesterday, her body remembered it could move. Today, her body will fight against that memory. Muscles unused for years resist. The spirit resists too. Pain will come before strength. Lyra swallowed hard, but her voice was steady. "I am ready." He looked at her carefully. "Pain is not your enemy. Fear is. If fear wins, you will not walk. Do you understand?" "I understand," she whispered. The human began the exercises again. He tied the cloth around her leg, guided her movements, asked her to imagine strength flowing through her body. Her face twisted with effort. Sweat formed on her brow. Minutes passed. Her legs shook, but they did not move. The nobles at the door smirked. See, it was nothing. Yesterday was chance. But then a cry escaped her lips. Her foot trembled again. Stronger. She gasped, her whole body shaking. Lady Seraphine rushed forward, her hands clenched. "Stop! You are hurting her." The human's voice cut sharp. "If I stop, she will never rise. Do you wish her to stay in that chair forever?" The words struck her like lightning. Her breath caught. She looked at her daughter. Lyra's face was twisted with pain, but her eyes burned with fire. "Mother," Lyra gasped. "Don't stop him, I want this." Tears filled Seraphine's eyes. She stepped back, her heart torn in two. The human's voice softened. "Pain is a teacher. Fear is the cage. She must pass both." Slowly, the girl's leg kicked forward. Just a few inches, but enough to silence every noble at the door. Lady Seraphine's lips trembled. She had seen it again. Real movement. Not by chance, not by machines, but by will. The human knelt in front of Lyra, his voice low and steady. "Good. Tomorrow we push further." Exhausted, Lyra fell back in her chair, but her smile was brighter than the stars outside. The nobles left, their faces pale. None dared speak. When the door closed, Lady Seraphine whispered almost to herself, "How can a human do this, when the galaxy could not?" The human looked at her, his eyes calm but heavy with something ancient. "Because humans know how to fight when nothing is left. That is our gift." Her breath caught. For the first time in years, she did not feel like a queen or a millionaire. She felt only like a mother. And for the first time, she let herself believe, just a little, that hope might be real. The walking trial. The third day dawned heavy. Clouds swirled over the alien city, casting shadows across the silver mansion. Inside, the air carried tension, thick and sharp. Servants whispered as they hurried through the halls. Nobles arrived, again drawn by rumors of the impossible. They wanted to see with their own eyes. Lyra sat in her floating chair, her hands trembling slightly, Not from fear, but from determination. Her body ached from the last session. Every muscle screamed. But her eyes glowed with a fire no one had seen in years. Lady Seraphine stood behind her daughter, torn in silence. She wanted to protect Lyra, to tell the human to stop, but she could not forget what she had seen. Twice now her daughter had moved. Small steps, yes, but more than all the healers of the galaxy had ever achieved. The human entered quietly, carrying his small case. His boots echoed softly against the polished floor. His face was calm, but his eyes burned with focus. "Today," he said simply, "we stand." The room gasped. Lyra's breath caught in her throat. "Stand?" "Yes." The human nodded. "Your body has remembered, now it must rise." Lady Seraphine stepped forward, her voice sharp. "She is not ready, her body will break." The human's gaze did not waver. "If she waits, she will never be ready. Standing is not about strength, it is about will." Lyra's lips trembled, but she nodded. "I will try." The nobles pressed closer, their whispers like knives. "This is madness. She will collapse. Humans are reckless fools." The human ignored them all. He placed the wooden stick in Lyra's hand, wrapping her fingers tightly around it. Then he tied the cloth straps around her legs, giving them a little support. "Listen to me," he said, his voice steady. "Do not think of failure. Do not think of fear. Think only of rising. The ground is not your enemy, the chair is not your prison. Stand, Lyra, stand." Her heart pounded. She had not stood in years. She had forgotten what it felt like. She closed her eyes, whispering to herself, "I can, I can." The human held her hands. "On my count, 1, 2, 3. Lyra pushed. Her arms shook violently. Her legs felt like stone. Her body refused. She gasped, sweat dripping down her face. She collapsed back into the chair. The nobles laughed cruelly. "Pathetic," one hissed. "It is impossible, lady." Seraphine's nails dug into her palms. She wanted to scream at them, to silence them forever. But her eyes stayed fixed on her daughter. The human crouched in front of Lyra. His voice was quiet but sharp as steel. Again, she looked at him with tears. "I cannot. You can. You will. Pain is not your end. It is your teacher." Lyra swallowed hard. She gripped the stick tighter, her arms trembling. Again the human counted. 1, 2, 3. She pushed. Harder this time. Her legs trembled, useless at first. Then, like sparks in a dying fire, they twitched. Slowly, shakily, her body lifted an inch, then 2. Gasps filled the room. But her strength gave out. She collapsed again, crying out in pain. "Enough." "Lady," Seraphine shouted, rushing forward. "She is hurting." The human raised his hand, stopping her. His eyes burned. "If you stop her now, you steal her chance. Do you wish her to live in that chair forever?" Seraphine froze, her chest heaving. She looked at her daughter. Lyra's face was twisted with pain, but her eyes begged for another chance. Again, Lyra whispered through her tears. "Please." Again. The nobles fell silent. None dared laugh now. The human helped her grip the stick again. His voice was low but fierce. "Feel the ground calling. You. Feel your body answering. You are not broken. You are alive. Stand, Lyra." Her teeth clenched. Her arms shook. She screamed as she pushed. This time her body rose higher. Her knees locked, weak but steady. Inch by inch she lifted from the chair. The floating seat hissed as her weight left it. Then she stood, unsteady, shaking, holding the stick like it was life itself. But she stood. The plate in Lady Seraphine's hands slipped and shattered on the floor. Tears flooded her eyes as she whispered, "My daughter, my daughter." The nobles gasped, their faces pale with shock. Some stumbled back as if they had seen a miracle. Lyra cried, not from pain, but from joy. "Mother, I'm standing. I'm standing. The human placed his hand lightly on her shoulder, steadying her. His eyes were calm, but a small smile touched his lips. You see, the body remembers. The spirit commands. Today you stand. Tomorrow you walk. Lady Seraphine rushed forward, her hands trembling, afraid to touch her daughter as if the moment would vanish. Lyra. My child. Lyra turned her head, tears streaming down her cheeks. Mother. I told you. I can fight. The human stepped back, his voice cutting through the stunned silence. This is not the end. This is only the first step. She has stood. Soon she will move. The nobles said nothing. Their mocking voices were gone. For the first time, they feared the human, because he had done what no one else could, because he had awakened the impossible. The Plate Falls the mansion was alive with whispers. For days everyone had spoken of nothing else. She stood. A human made her rise. It is impossible. Yet it happened. The news spread through the city like fire. Nobles who once mocked Lady Seraphine now waited outside her gates, desperate to see the miracle girl with their own eyes. Servants walked lighter, their voices filled with awe. Even the walls of the mansion seemed brighter, carrying hope instead of sorrow. But no one felt the change more than Lady Seraphine. For years she had carried silence and despair like chains. Now her heart beat with something new. Fear, yes, but also joy. For the first time she had seen her daughter stand. It had been only for moments, but those moments had shattered years of hopelessness. And yet, doubt clung to her. Could it last? Or was it only a cruel trick of fate? That night, the mansion's great dining hall was prepared. The long silver table stretched under the glowing chandeliers. Dishes of rare foods shimmered with colors and scents from distant worlds. It was a feast, not for celebration, but for proof. The nobles wanted to see with their own eyes if the girl could do more than stand. Lyra sat in her floating chair at the far end of the table. She wore a simple gown, her hair braided, neatly by the servants. Her face was pale, her body still weak, but her eyes burned with determination. Lady Seraphine sat beside her, trying to hide her trembling hands. Across the table, nobles whispered among themselves, their jeweled robes glittering. Some still mocked. Others stared with hungry curiosity. At last the human entered. No fanfare, no guards, no fine clothing, just the same plain boots, the same steady eyes. The hall fell silent as he walked to Lyra. He leaned close, his voice low but firm. Tonight you do more than stand. Tonight you walk. Lyra's heart pounded. Her hands shook around her cup. Walk? But what if I fall? Then you rise again, he answered simply. Lady Seraphine's breath caught. She wanted to stop him, to protect her child from the risk, but she saw the light in Lyra's eyes, the same light she had thought lost forever. So she said nothing. Dinner began. Plates clattered, nobles muttered, but no one truly ate. Their eyes stayed fixed on the girl at the end of the table. Lyra gripped the wooden stick the human had given her. She closed her eyes, breathing slowly, remembering his words. The body remembers. The spirit commands. The human knelt beside her chair. When you are ready, he said softly. She nodded. Slowly, carefully, she placed her feet on the ground. They trembled, weak but alive. Her fingers tightened around the stick. With a deep breath, she pushed. The chair hissed as her weight left it. Her legs shook violently, threatening to collapse. But she rose. She stood. Gasps echoed through the hall. A noble dropped his cup. Another whispered, "By the stars." Lady Seraphine's heart pounded so hard she could barely breathe. She gripped the edge of the table, her knuckles white. Then the human spoke, his voice steady. Now, walk. Lyra's eyes widened. Fear flashed across her face. I cannot. Yes, you can, he said firmly. One step, only one, then another. Her legs shook. Sweat formed on her brow. But slowly she lifted her foot. It slid forward, shaky, but real. Then she shifted her weight and brought the other leg. One step. The hall erupted in gasps. Another step. The nobles rose. From their seats, their eyes wide. Servants covered their mouths. The chandeliers seemed to glow brighter as if the mansion itself was watching. Lyra's lips trembled. "Mother, I'm walking." Lady Seraphine's vision blurred with tears. She had dreamed of these words for years, but hearing them now, she could not move, could not breathe. Her hand shook around her silver plate, and then it slipped. The plate crashed to the floor, shattering into pieces. The sound echoed through the hall like thunder. But no one cared about the broken plate. All eyes were on the girl, who stood on trembling legs, taking step after step. The nobles were silent, their pride crushed. Servants wept openly. Lyra's body shook, ready to collapse, but the human steadied her with a gentle hand. "Good. Every step is victory. Remember this." She smiled through tears, her voice breaking. "I never thought I would feel the floor again." Lady Seraphine fell to her knees, her hands covering her face as she sobbed. Not with sorrow this time, but with joy so sharp it felt like pain. "My daughter, you walk." Lyra reached her arms out, her legs trembling. She stumbled forward, and for the first time in years she collapsed not into her chair, but into her mother's arms. The hall exploded, not with laughter, not with doubt, but with awe. The human stood tall, his eyes calm, his voice carrying across the stunned silence. "This is only the beginning. Soon she will not need me. Soon she will walk the stars herself." And in that moment, every noble in the hall, every servant in the room, even Lady Seraphine herself, knew the truth. The galaxy's greatest miracle had come not from wealth, not from alien science, but from the will of a fragile, stubborn, unstoppable human.